Hi, everyone. I'm Zach Randalls-Friedman, the host of Listen Up Girl podcast. This is your go-to LGBTQ plus news, culture, and everything shaping our lives right now. Today's episode is a lot, and we're going to be talking about new laws that could directly impact trans youth, cultural clapbacks from queer spaces, political chaos, and ongoing tension between visibility and safety in America right now. And some of these stories are frustrating, some are inspiring, or some are just wild. So let's get into it. Our first story is Idaho's law and real impact on trans youth. Let's start in Idaho again, where Governor Brad Little has signed a deeply controversial bill into law. The legislation requires schools and healthcare providers to notify parents within 72 hours if a minor requests any kind of gender-related accommodations, and that includes something as simple as using a different name, a pronoun, or even accessing a different bathroom. Now, on paper, supporters call this parental rights, but here's the reality. For a lot of LGBTQ plus youth, especially trans youth, home is not always a safe place. Forcing a school or provider to out a child could put that child at risk of rejection, abuse, or even homelessness. And the penalties are up to $100,000 per violation. So what does that mean? It means teachers, counselors, and doctors, people who were often the only safe adults in a young person's life, are now legally required to break that trust. That isn't just policy, that is personal. And it's part of a broader wave of legislation targeting trans youth across the country. So here's my question. Aren't doctors supposed to keep information confidential? And I know it's their parents and stuff, but like if you're a counselor, like are you required to tell a parent everything that a child said? I just think this is going to end so badly for so many people. It's just insanity to me. So now we go to queer culture claps back. DC bar goes full camp. Now let's shift the tone because this one's one thing queer culture does well. It turns hypocrisy into humor. A leather bar in Washington, D.C., the Eagle, hosted a theme night called Bimbofication, inspired by rumors about a conservative political figure's husband. And honestly, the energy was chaotic, camp, and completely intentional. Their promo basically said, "We've seen the rumors and we're inspired." This is a classic queer resistance, taking something rooted in shame or scandal and flipping it into celebration, parody, and community. Because queer spaces have always been more than nightlife. They're places where we process culture, sometimes with humor, sometimes with shade. I am all for it. I don't know why I have to say that it's an alleged. We've seen pictures of Christy Noem's husband having these huge, gigantic boobs and dressing as a bimbo. So next, Caitlyn Jenner's financial dispute. She's back in the news. Caitlyn Jenner is making headlines again, but this time it's not about politics or media appearances. She's filed a claim for nearly $440,000 against the estate of Sophia Hutchins. The claim alleges that Hutchins accumulated significant expenses, including credit card charges and legal fees that Jenner ultimately covered. Now, Hutchins are widely rumored to be close to Jenner, though through relationship was never officially defined. This situation highlights something we don't always talk about, the financial and legal complexities that can arise in a close personal relationships, especially with wealth, fame, and unclear boundaries are involved. Caitlyn's probably just being greedy and wants more money. I've got to assume she's made enough money, especially off the Kardashians, to live a nice life, but what do I know? And who really cares about her anyway? Because she is a big MAGA Republican. Next, Chris Colfer's powerful new role. Chris Colfer, many who know from Glee, is stepping into a much darker, more intense role. In his new film, he plays a survivor of conversion therapy. Someone who was forced to suppress his identity is now reclaiming it in adulthood. And what's powerful here is that the story doesn't center victimhood, it centers agency. It's about someone who refuses to live by someone else's expectations anymore. And honestly, that's a story so many LGBTQ plus people can relate to. I can't wait to have that movie out, and I hope Chris comes on my show and wants to talk about his new movie, because I would love to have him on. Next, teacher forced out for being honest. In Georgia, a special education paraprofessional says that she was pressured to resign after telling a student she is gay. And here's the key detail. She didn't bring it up randomly. She said it in a response to the student making homophobic comments. So instead of addressing the behavior, the school teacher targeted her. This raises a bigger question. Are LGBTQ plus educators actually allowed to exist openly in schools? Because if simply acknowledging your identity is grounds for losing your job, then that's not sexuality, that's suppression. Now we go to Sarah McBride versus political transphobia. Represented Sarah McBride, she's the first openly trans member of Congress and has spoke out against violent rhetoric towards Iran. And instead of engaging with her point, another lawmaker responded with a transphobic attack. McBride's response was sharp, smart, and cutting, pointing out that how assertive it was using trans existence as a political weapon. This is what we're seeing more and more. LGBTQ identities being used as distractions instead of engaging with the real issues. I mean, let's just stop for a moment and pause and think about this. We have the Epstein files. We started a war to avoid that. Now we have gone back from the war because we don't want to talk about the war anymore, and we're back on the Epstein files. And now we're kind of going back to the war again. And now we also want to start talking about trans rights again because then we won't talk about the Epstein files. Release the fucking Epstein files already. We know the orange convicted felons are in the Epstein files. There's pictures. And the Melania is Trump. I just can't. And that speech from the first lady that happened this week was so disgusting. Like she's sitting there trying to say that she didn't know Epstein and all this other stuff. Yes, we've seen pictures of you with Epstein. There's pictures, there's files, you're in there. We know that you knew Epstein. We knew you were more than just occasional acquaintances with Epstein. And here's the other thing. This whole administration really can't stand anybody that's an immigrant and not from America. But yet the first lady can barely speak English. Why aren't we talking about that? She's been here for over 30 years and she still can't even speak English hardly. I didn't understand a word she said. But yet I'm sure all the Republicans just like love that. I don't know. Such double standards. Just like let people live their lives. This is America. You're supposed to let people come here to have the opportunity to live a safe and amazing life. Give them the opportunity. Stop trying to keep people out just because they don't look like you. Oh, sorry about that. I had to get that out. Next, Elon Musk controversy. Elon Musk is once again in the spotlight, and this time for mocking a Canadian politician discussing funding cuts tied to missing and murdered Indigenous LGBTQ plus people. Instead of engaging with the issues, he made jokes about the link of the LGBTQ acronym. But here's the thing. The acronym represents real people, real lives, and real violence. And dismissing it as a joke minimizes a very serious crisis. And Elon, that's why your daughter, Vivian, who is transgender, has nothing to do with you because you are an asshole. That's what I'll leave it there. Next, anti-LGBTQ author indicted. A Christian author known for criticizing LGBTQ plus people has been indicted on multiple child sex charges. Surprise, surprise. And once again, we're seeing a pattern where people who loudly position themselves as moral authorities are being accused of deeply harmful behavior. Yeah, multiple sex charges is horrible, and you got caught. It doesn't mean every critic is guilty, but it does raise questions about who gets to define morality in these conversations. And it should not be this anti-LGBTQ author if you're trying to do things to children. Sicko. Next, Grindr goes political. I love this story. Grindr is hosting an event tied to the White House Correspondents Dinner. And this is actually a big deal because it signals LGBTQ plus platforms stepping directly into the political media spaces. It's about visibility, influence, and making sure our issues are part of the national conversation. And next, Malcolm in the Middle gets an update. The revival of Malcolm in the Middle is introducing a non-binary character, and doing it is really important the way that they're doing it. It's not the entire story, it's just part of who they are. And that kind of expression where queerness exists without being an issue is exactly where media is evolving. Now we go to Mississippi for an anti-trans bill. Mississippi lawmakers have passed a bill that would prevent trans people from updating gender markers on their driver's license. If signed, it would force people to carry IDs that don't match who they are, which can lead to discrimination, harassment, and even danger. This isn't just paperwork, it's about dignity and safety. Again, this impacts people's employment, their housing, how they can travel, everything. Your ID is tied to everything. Why can't you just let people be who they are? So that is where we are in today's news. Stay tuned because I have more news coming out tomorrow. If this episode resonated with you, please be sure to share it with a few friends. Also, please leave a comment. I need comments on my show. And I thank you so much for listening. And I'll be back tomorrow with more news.